I want to spend this day corrupting something nice and turning it to chaos. This Primaris Apothecary will turn into a death guard abomination that has fallen for chaos. So let's see what damage we can do.
Let's look at the mini first and see what we will keep and what we will destroy and chaosify and replace with some death guard bits. So I want to keep that syringe pistol thingy and the holster of the pistol, the surgical ropes. On the right leg, there are these syringes or whatever. Yes, the little arm on the top, and he has a second one you can replace. I will put both on top there. The backpack itself, I will put some more stuff on there. Yes. Pistol holster, yes. And the rest, head, definitely not. The shoulder pads, we'll get Death Guard shoulder pads. Then the symbol on the pistol holster, no. Then the purity seals, yuck. And the stuff that is hanging around his neck, no, no, no. The, the little lens he's looking through and the right arm, no, I want to put a weapon on the right arm like a sword. And the guy he's standing on, no, let's get rid of that as well. So that's all the changes I want to do.
The first procedure we need to perform is to remove the sprues from the blister. This is important because they are choice bits of that Primaris body we want to use for our conversion. Now we need a stable platform to work from, so we will assemble all of the parts of the Primaris Marine, and then we get rid of that second pistol holster because 2 pistols are a little bit excessive in my opinion, and then we just glue together all the parts of the body that can be used to attach more chaotic appendages and stuff to later.
Sorry, my Vox module had a little bit of a glitch. And then we just attach him to the base. I have to say the worst part of the model to build was the injector pistol. The injector pistol has 2 tiny bits that have these vials on the bottom that are probably an injection fluid that is injected in your specimen that you're treating or whatever. And it has these 2 little metal guards on the front that probably they register when you touch something and then you inject the needle or whatever. And they have these little tiny plastic bits that you have to line up correctly and glue together. But I let it dry and then I attached it to the wrist. And after that, I just attached the arm to the guy and then added my nice Death Guard shoulder pad with 3 skulls on it as well. And then I scratched the symbol on the weapon holster away and then melted the rest of it away with some extra thin plastic cement. Then I cut away the loyalist symbols on the right leg and got rid of that skull belt buckle. Then I cut a little tiny fly in half with the help of some blue tack. One of the halves was destroyed in the process, unfortunately, but the other half could go on the belt buckle and be a little bit of a Nurgle decoration there. Tiny, tiny conversion, but I think it is worth it in the end. And since there is no way we can use those disgusting purity symbols on the model, we have to get rid of those leather straps that they are hanging on. And I distorted the front of the body with some drill holes so to make it look like the guy has some tethered ropes on. And then I had to add something there because it was a little bit too boring just with a few holes. So I added these vials on there, and the tiny one that is on the left side of the model fell off in the painting process, and I thought it just looked better and left it off. And as a weapon on the right arm, I wanted to use a chainsword or whatever that is, plague sword, that is from the original Plague Surgeon model from the Death Guard. But it is on the left arm, so I had to cut the blade off and then cut the blade from a plague knife off that is on the right side and then just add the blade on top of the handle to make it fit the model because, you know, always on the wrong side, those weapons. And then I attached a Mark III shoulder pad to the guy, but I had to cut a big chunk of it away because there were some pox supposed to grow out of that shoulder pad. And I prepared that off the miniature because it's much easier to cut something off when you have it on the table. And I'm not a big fan of bare heads that are not helmeted. You have to paint eyebrows and eyes and lips and all of that stuff. But I was a really big fan of this guy that has some fungus growing out of him. He's from the Space Marine Heroes flamethrower guy. And this one really resonated with me. He only has one eye to paint, so even if your one pupil is not really aligned properly, he does not have cross-eyed view because he only has one eye. And the other eye is just a gaping hole with some teeth. Traditional chaos thing, you know. And you're supposed to pick one of the arms that is on top. One has a syringe and one has a saw, but I wanted both. But the problem is they would both look into the same direction. So I had to cut this one on the right side apart and reassemble it the other way around, basically mirrored to the other one. And that gives you that classic Fabio spy look, almost like a praying mantis with those surgical instruments on top of it. And I had some tiny rivets that I replaced holes in, and they flew away like 500 times. And I had to drill a little bit of a hole into the side, and oh my god, it was a nightmare. But with some thin plastic cement, I was able to rub the parts together so they would melt together, because otherwise those tiny arms would probably fall apart with the slightest touch or a little bit of a breeze of a wind or whatever. And then I attached them back to the top of the model, and that is what he looks like for now. Pretty good silhouette of the model, I would say. I forgot to mention that I added some part of a Terminator backpack thingy. They don't really have backpacks, but they have these weird attachments on the back. And I added some sprue glue and slapped that on him. It was really basically a nightmare because it did not fit. And I had sprue glue all over the model and my fingers. And oh my god, I don't think I filmed that. And I want to spare you that, that madness. But the model looks cool so far, but I need to make some more chaosy attachments to him. So I took some of these nice tentacles from the Beast of Nurgle kit that I had left over. And my sprue glue is an absolute mess here. There's just sprue glue all over the place because it's too full. And I just slapped that behind the backpack and that attachment. And then I crammed some of those tentacles in, and they kind of look like mature versions of the little growth that he has on his head. And those are basically just the older polyps or living fungus tentacles or whatever that are growing out of there. That's just what you get when you don't shower enough in the warp. And this is my favorite Nurgle technique. Add some sprue glue on an area, probably best if you cut away something from that area before. And then you put some nail art beads that are tiny plastic half spheres in there that come in different sizes. And that makes it look like pox or some eggs or other growth or whatever. And it is really easy to do that. And I think the result is really nice. And I've made a video about this. You can check that out if you want. And it's just such an easy way to get some visual interest on the miniature. I mostly use that on shoulder pads or on areas that are a little bit too boring, like this guy's one leg was just too plain. So I did that on there as well. We still have a problem on the miniature, however. One of the feet is floating in the air because there was a tactical dead space marine under there. So why not give him a little body? Or let's just say it's more like a victim or a specimen he's extracting something from or injecting something into. Who knows? The only thing I'm sure about is that it's probably not gonna end well for our little snail buddy. And this is an arm from the old metal chaos spawn that is lying around in my bits box for 20 years, and I always wanted to use it somewhere, but I could not figure out where to use this pathetic snail thingy. It wasn't good for an arm or for a head, but now I have the perfect solution. It is just someone who has been crushed underneath the foot of a Chaos Space Marine. And I also had that plastic tentacle thingy there. I'm not sure where that came from, probably from a Tyrannid or from another kid. If you remember where it came from, just put it in the comments below. And I couldn't really make the transition 100% smooth, so I thought, why not just crush him and have his body like just broken apart, and added some sprue glue to the middle of that. And I think it really looks really funny. And I basically bent with my pliers, I bent the eyes and the neck a little bit to shape to have him look up like, oh no, master. Yeah, it's not gonna end well for our little snail buddy there. I'm unfortunately pretty sure about that. Oh no. And the finishing touch on the miniature is the base. I added some glue and then added some pieces of slate to the base. And after that, some sand. And since our little snail body was still drying, I didn't just dump the whole miniature into the sand bath, because then the sand would go everywhere and all of the textures would be covered with sand. So I sprinkled it carefully with my fingers on top there, and then I let the miniature dry for a few hours. Next step is spray painting the miniature with Chaos Black. I spray paint the base edge and the miniature from the bottom black. And then on the next step, I sprayed with Death Guard Green from the top, but I want to make sure that the base edge doesn't get any Death Guard Green on it, it stays black. So I mask it off with some masking tape. And after the spray coat with Death Guard Green, it is really satisfying to peel that tape off again and see that black base edge underneath that. And as you can see, there's a kind of pre-shading from the bottom of the miniature that is black now. Now I go the opposite direction. I add some highlights on the top of the miniature, so it looks like the light is touching the miniature from the top. So I take some Underhive Ash and I dry brush the miniature heavily from the top down. And I focus on all of the armor panels, on the backpack, for example, on the legs. But stuff like the armor trims will be metal anyway, so there's no point dry brushing them this way. And then after this layer is done, I also do the same thing again with a lighter Nurgling green and white mixture again. So it's even lighter on the top, and I do that in a little bit of a smaller area, and I focus on areas that are standing out, like the top of the backpack, the top of the shoulders, the front of the boots, and the kneecaps and stuff like that. And the next step was to block in all of the base coats, starting with Bugman's Glow on all of the tentacle fleshy bits, on the skin, and on the holes in the armor. While I was doing that, I watched the presentation from Atlanta in America this year for the Warmer Worlds and the Grand Narrative stuff, and they shown a lot of stuff from the Mortal Realms. The Nurgle stuff they're gonna get is amazing. Just the Dark Water stuff, the villains that are in the box are amazing, and the Putrid Blight Kings, what they are getting is awesome, and I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably buy some of those kits and use them for my Death Guard. And the Grand Narrative was on that weekend too. Unfortunately, this year I couldn't go. I want to go to it next year again. We will see if the budget allows it, but would be awesome. This year I wanted to go to a 70th birthday of a family member, so I couldn't go. But I really wanted to attend that birthday party. It was a lot of fun, so it was fine. And the miniature, I just blocked in all of the base coats. What can I say? I do Steel Legion Drab on all of the bone bits, then Lead Belcher on the metal trim, Warblock Bronze on all of the bronze stuff, and then Hashed Copper over those. Again, if it's a lighter bronze color or like a brassy color. And the little slug guy just was painted in pink horror, because I think he's a pink horror. Not really in the sense of a Siege demon, but he's pink and he's a horror. Yeah. And after all of the base coats were laid down, Mephisto in red and stuff like that, it's just easy, straightforward. I wash it with a 50-50 mix of Agrex Earthshade and Lamia Medium, and then I let that dry, and then I wash them again with a 50-50 mix of Lamia Medium and Seraphim Sepia, and I let that dry again. And then I do some highlights. And I edge highlight everything that was painted lead belcher before with Stormhost Silver now, and Hashed Copper on the Warblock Bronze bits, and on the Hashed Copper bits again. I add a little bit of Stormhost Silver into the Hashed Copper to make that highlight a little bit lighter. And yeah, I put some lighter gray on that little cloud that comes out of the backpack. Some Flesh gets yellow mixed in with Avalon Sunset, and then some pure Flesh gets yellow on all of the boils, and some Evil Sun Scarlet on the red, and some Emperor's Children pink stuff on the little slug friend. I used Caribou Crimson around the edges of the eye, and I even painted some little veins in the eyes that they look really bloodshot, and it's really struggling against that boot. And then I added some blood for the blood god and Nurgle's rod that is bursting out of its broken body. and it looks really, really, really dead or dying. I'm so sorry for that. And then I did some weathering. Of course, those surgeon robes couldn't be clean with a Death Guard guy, so I added blood for the blood god mixed with black, some sprinkles here and there on the back as well, and I added some dust to the bottom even, and made it really dirty. Then I added some rust to the metal bits and some verdigris to all of the copper and bronze bits, and then the paint job was done. And I could add some bushes and little growth and moss and stuff to the base. And here we have him in all of his painted glory. The plague surgeon now, not an apothecary anymore. He is fully corrupted, fully to the dark side. There you go. And if you want to watch another video of mine, click on the link in the middle of the video or smash the frog in the right corner to never miss a video in the future. A video? A video.